Hey everyone, when was the last time you felt excited to stick to a habit, to follow through with discipline, rather than just chase the next dopamine hit? If your answer is I can't remember, or hardly ever, then stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what we're going to talk about isn't just another productivity trick. We're diving into how your brain actually learns to enjoy discipline. Yes, enjoy it, instead of resisting it. We'll talk real science, real psychology, and real life. Ready? Let's go. You know the feeling. You fire up a new habit. Maybe it's waking up earlier, working out, practicing a skill. You're all in for a day or two. Then your motivation tanks. Suddenly the bed is way more comfortable than the gym. The phone screen way more attractive than the novel you promised yourself. This pattern isn't about being lazy or undisciplined. It's about how your brain is wired. In the past, people thought that the neurotransmitter dopamine was simply the pleasure chemical. You did something fun. You felt good. Dopamine. But research shows that dopamine is less about the feeling of pleasure and much more about motivation, effort, and anticipation. As researcher Jerome Salamone puts it, low levels of dopamine make people less likely to work for things, so it has more to do with motivation and cost-benefit analyses than pleasure itself. In other words, if your brain is used to quick dopamine hits, a social media scroll, a snack binge, a video game win, then anything that requires effort but gives delayed reward will feel comparatively boring, heavy, or pointless. That's why motivation alone fails us. It's fleeting and subject to how our brain's reward system has been trained. Let's zoom out and think of two systems at work. One that seeks instant reward and one that invests in long-term payoff. The instant reward system wins easily because it's wired for survival. Eat, have fun, avoid pain. But for big goals, building skill, growing your character, mastering discipline, the payoff is slow and the path is effortful. So why does the short path always win? Well, because the brain is primed for what psychologist Kent Berridge calls wanting, more than liking. Berridge's work argues that the dopamine system attributes incentive salience, the wanting of something, to cues associated with reward. So when you see your phone lighting up, you want to pick it up. The liking of it might fade, but the cue triggers the wanting. Meanwhile, sitting down at the desk for an hour of productive work, the cue is weak, the wanting is weak. The payoff is far away. You're starting behind. Another quote from Anna Lembke gets this. The paradox is that hedonism, the pursuit of pleasure for its own sake, leads to anhedonia, which is the inability to enjoy pleasure of any kind. When we flood our brains with cheap rewards, we raise the bar for what counts as worth it. And then the disciplined path seems trivial by comparison. Here comes the good news. You can retrain your brain so that discipline isn't a struggle but something you enjoy. The trick is to shift how your brain's reward system sees effort, process, and payoff. Here are the crucial steps, and I'll illustrate each with real-life examples. A. Reduce the cheap reward overload. If you're constantly scrolling, snacking, binge-watching, you're flooding your brain with high-frequency dopamine hits. That means when you face a low-stimulus task, like writing, studying, exercising, you're facing a system that's been trained to expect fireworks. One practical move: pick one high dopamine habit and reduce it significantly. Say social media time or junk food. Let your brain reset. Anna Lembke says, the reward of finding and maintaining balance require patience and maintenance. Start small and build consistency. Maybe you're trying to write for an hour every day, but your brain rebels after 10 minutes. Better, commit to 5 minutes at a set time daily. The goal here is not to produce a masterpiece. It's to signal to your brain, hey, this is what we do. That little signal generates a dopamine anticipation spike. Oh, I'm about to do something consistent. And over time, the process itself becomes the reward. Scientist Roshan Kool studies how neuromodulators like dopamine affect cognitive control and decision-making. Her work shows how incremental, persistent action shapes the brain's reward circuits over time. See, focus on process, not just outcome. Here's a shift in mindset. Instead of, I'll be happy when I finish this goal, think I get to engage in this process because I'm building who I want to be. The identity shift, I am someone who shows up, is more powerful than a single achievement. The anticipation matters more than the end result. James Clear nails it. Whenever you predict that an opportunity will be rewarding, your levels of dopamine spike in anticipation. And whenever dopamine rises, so does your motivation to act. So if the process feels meaningful, your brain triggers motivation naturally. Build a routine and environment that supports you. Don't rely solely on willpower. Shape your environment so that the desired action is easy and the alternative is harder. If you want to exercise at 7 a.m., lay out your workout gear the night before. If you want to write for 10 minutes after lunch, schedule it and block distractions. Over time, when your brain sees the cue, gear laid out, laptop open, it starts associating that cue with action. This consistency builds automaticity. D. Celebrate small wins and track progress. Every micro-action matters. Mark it, acknowledge it, even if it's just, I showed up for 5 minutes. That acknowledgement triggers dopamine, not the cheap kind, but the meaningful kind tied to self-efficacy. Over time, your brain rewires so that showing up becomes its own reward. Real-life stories and case illustrations. Let me share 2 relatable stories. Story A. The smartphone trap. Consider Jenna, a 27-year-old professional. She used to check her phone first thing in the morning, then again 3 or 4 times before 10 a.m. She felt productive, she was connected, but by lunchtime she was drained, distracted, frustrated by her inability to focus. The constant small dopamine hits from notifications conditioned her brain to expect stimulation. When she sat down to write a report, the silence felt heavier than ever. After she cut phone check windows down and committed to writing for 10 minutes each morning, with phone in another room, she found the brain's anticipation started shifting. After 2 weeks, she didn't dread the writing block. She looked forward to its clarity. The process became the reward. Story B. The fitness hobby turned habit. Mark always told himself he'd run a marathon someday. He bought the shoes, read the books, watched YouTube videos, but actual running happened sporadically. Why? The payoff was far off, the starting barrier high. He changed strategy. For 2 weeks, he ran only 3 minutes after work. That was it, no goal of miles or speed, just 3 minutes. He turned it into a non-negotiable cue. Shoes on, door open, 3 minutes. After a month, he gradually increased. He found himself looking forward to that transition time. He felt awake after the run. The process provided reward. Months later, he signed up for a 10K, not because he chased the finish line, but because he was someone who went for the run. Beyond routines, tools, and environment, there's a deeper psychological reframing, viewing discipline not as deprivation, but as self-respect. As psychologist Lembke hints, trying to avoid pain endlessly often creates more pain. We avoid discomfort, settle for easy wins, and then hate how unmotivated we feel. But what if discomfort, small, consistent, intentional, becomes a building block, not an enemy? What if the discomfort of discipline is actually the signal that your brain is rewiring? When you begin to feel the stir of resistance, the I don't want to start feeling, you know you're at the threshold. Push through. That threshold is the moment your brain is deciding whether this habit is worth it. And by showing up, you're telling your brain, yes, this is who I am. That identity stickiness matters. When the brain sees this is who I am, it starts behaving accordingly. Let's wrap with a simple plan you can use this week. 1. Choose one high dopamine habit to cut back on, e.g., scrolling, gaming, sugary snacks. 2. Choose one discipline habit to start small, e.g., write for 5 minutes, run for 3 minutes, practice an instrument for 2 minutes. Do it at the same time each day, cue ready. After you finish each session, say out loud or jot, I showed up. Acknowledge it or at end of week review, how did it feel? What changed? Where was resistance? Consider adjusting the cue or the timing to better fit your rhythm. Denuance, increase the duration slowly. Only when the habit feels easy and you actually look forward to the cue, not dread it. Because here's the final truth. Your brain will only reward you for what it expects to occur. If you surprise it with rewiring, rewarding the process more than the outcome, you win the long game. The payoff isn't just finishing the goal. It's becoming the person who loves the process. So there you have it. Discipline doesn't have to feel like a battle. It can feel like a flow. When you shift your brain's reward expectations, when you honor the process, not just the result, and when you build consistent cues and tiny actions that your brain begins to associate with you unlock a different kind of motivation. One that doesn't fade, one that grows. For years, scientists assumed dopamine was all about pleasure. Now we know it plays a central role in many neurological processes, including motivation, learning, and memory. James Clear used that truth. Use it to your advantage. Next time you face that moment of resistance, when the bed is too warm, the phone too tempting, the habit too hard, remember, you're not fighting yourself. You're talking to your brain's old wiring. You're rewiring it, one cue, one small action, one day at a time.